Hi, I'm Cheryl Hamada. Welcome to this episode of Extreme Homes, the program that takes you to some of the world's most unusual houses. Some are grandiose, some are minuscule. Each and every one is unique. We'll also introduce you to the people who live in these awesome abodes, these quirky quarters, these surprising shelters. And we'll find out what it's like to be in a place that always merits a second and sometimes even a third glance. Today we'll be visiting a vacation area in Michigan to peek inside a cottage that seems to have sprung straight from the Brothers Grimm. Then we'll be in a quiet little town in northwestern Illinois where a very inventive artist has transformed a huge Victorian house into a bewitching experience. Welcome back to Extreme Homes. We're going to Mount Carroll, Illinois, a quiet town in the northwest corner of the state. Jim Warfield grew up there and had always been curious about a particular big old house with a very colorful history. It began as an inn with stables in back and was even said to be a house of ill repute at one point. During Prohibition, Jim's grandfather tended bar at a speakeasy set up in the house's cellar. But by the time the house turned 100, it was in a sad state, subdivided into apartments. And none of the tenants stayed too long, which drove the owner nuts.
And he wanted to sell it real bad because he couldn't make any money on it, because people move out all the time because of this voice calling their name in the bedroom, waking them up, you know, it's a haunted house.
Undaunted by the alleged hauntings, Jim bought the property and moved right in. He also started renovating the house, in a way, transforming it into what he now calls the Grin Inn, even though it's not an inn at all. In fact, the only people who dare sleep there are Jim and his wife, Christina, whose private living quarters are strictly off limits to their paying customers. But the house is open for tours, and some 5,000 people traipse through the public part of the house each year. For Jim, the Raven's Grin is the perfect outlet for his boundless creativity.
For the last 10 years, I've worked full-time on my house and in my house. I work on it during the daytime, and I work in it at night, taking groups of people through it for tours. I always like to do artistic, sort of goofy things and make Halloween costumes and all that sort of stuff. And I've always drawn little pictures and written little things, and I always had enjoyed some sort of an outlet. But then when I got older, I was taught how to weld by a local blacksmith, and so I started welding some steel stuff together. And you know, you draw a picture for somebody, they can stick it in their back pocket, and it goes through their laundry, and it's gone. But you weld something together, and that doesn't go through the laundry so well, so it's a little more permanent, you know, or eye-catching, what do you want to call it? Durable, that's the word. Yeah. The original exterior of the 1870 type design, we've painted the little fancy parts of the woodwork and stuff to highlight it, and then we gave it what I call a spooked Victorian paint job, so the first floor is basically flat black, and then it gets gray, and then gray-blue as it goes up. So at night, with the lighting just right and a little imagination, it almost looks like the house is floating in midair. That's what I wanted it to do. Then the rest of the stuff I've built and put on the outside of the house are things that I thought were kind of nifty, like the pterodactyl skeleton. And we start tours at 7 o'clock at night. And it takes an hour from an hour and a half to go through the house, and we're charging $7 a person. I don't make up any stories about the house. Like, I have about a 20-minute routine I can tell people in the front room, and that's just scratching the surface of things that have happened in that house. And then I tell them I don't make up these stories, but anyway, you know, it's all fun, entertainment. And people give me credit for these incredible special effects. We don't do chainsaws or Freddy or Jason or that other tired old Hollywood stuff. I have my own monsters that I've dreamt up and play with, and we do try to mostly entertain people. We don't try to terrorize them per se. It's not a gory place like so many other ones tend to be.
But even without the grislier experiences of some haunted houses, it's nevertheless a visit not easily forgotten.
Some people do bring their children or grandchildren here for disciplinary reasons. You know, I say, you be good or we'll take you back there, you know.
When we return, we'll risk getting the full Ravens Grin Inn experience and find out what it's like to live where there's no escaping the nightly screams of terror.
Get your tickets here, get your tickets.
This Welcome back to Extreme Homes. We're about to take our chances at the Ravens Grin Inn. After what we've seen of the outside, we shudder to imagine what awaits us inside.
It always pays to phone ahead first. Well, the interior of my home is sort of the way I found it when I bought the place in some respects, because it had been a severely neglected rental property. And I used a lot of the old things that were left for displays and whatnot, some ceilings and walls and floors. And then I went to junk sales and yard sales and acquired more unusual little items that I would paint, decorate, assemble, put together. I used an awful lot of used lumber, used materials, found objects. But you still have to buy new conduit, new wiring, new nails, new screws, new paint at least half the time. And that stuff does get expensive. And I believe that people come here looking for new and different things, and if they're coming back here 2 or 3 times a year, I don't want to disappoint them. Go straight ahead until you can't go anymore, and then take a right. To be right behind you. And I also do all my own work, welding, sanding, grinding, cutting, building, painting, drawing. And over there in the corner we have Ravens Grin Inn souvenir dirt pile. You can take a pocket full of dirt home tonight if you want to. It has heirloom potential, low maintenance product, or just give it to Kitty to scratch in. And over here we have the downstairs basement bat room for people who drink light beer or have to throw up. And that's Ravina, my flower girl costume, for which I want absolutely nothing.
Twitch for us, Spider. Give us a sign.
Spiders don't hurt anybody. Oh, don't reach out. You lay down on top of the blanket, one at a time. The most complicated thing I probably built in the house was probably the first major thing I built, which was the bed slide. Lay back, wrap up, keep your elbows up and in, your head up a little bit. Because I basically had to cut holes all the way through the house.
Have you been a good girl this week? Yeah. Don't lie to Porky. Have you been oh, forget it.
And build a slide from the second floor all the way down here to the wine cellar below the basement.
At 6,000 square feet, it's a very big house, but it seems to be almost entirely devoted to scaring people. We wondered where in this madhouse Jim and his wife actually live.
Our private bedroom and bathrooms and kitchen are in one corner of the house. My living space used to be a pretty raw place back there when I lived here alone, but when you're married and you have a wife and everything, things have to change, and I don't mind changing things and painting the walls pretty colors she wants and doing nice carpet things and so on and so forth. I've even insulated that part of the house away from this part of the house for the noise and the vibration factor as much as I can. And because sometimes in the busy season, the tours start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they don't get done until 3 o'clock a.m. straight through. And you have a couple hundred people screaming and hollering and banging and carrying on all night long like that. It kind of gets on a person's nerves when it's right near the side of the wall, usually. Well, a lot of people would like to know what it's like to live here, and some people, their imagination gets so wound up they can't conceive of what it'd be like to live here, because this is an actual haunted house where people have seen ghosts, heard things, voices, things happen by themselves, so on and so forth. Anyway, the lady in white has been seen here, like I said, ever since 1925, when they tried to have a speakeasy tavern in this room.
In fact, although Jim hasn't seen any ghosts, his wife Christina has had several eerie experiences in the 4 years since she has been living in the house.
Run home for about 2 weeks.
Once, she observed several shadowy figures, ghosts she guesses, hanging out in the wine cellar. Another time, she heard a voice calling her name in the same spot that the house's former tenants used to hear their names being called now and then. And neither she nor Jim can explain why every so often the displays turn themselves on in the middle of the night. But it doesn't scare either one of them.
I just laugh them off because in the history of hauntings in the United States and the world that I'm aware of, there's only been one instance in which a human being was actually seriously harmed or killed by a poltergeist or ghost.
We thought we'd get Christina's viewpoint on living in the midst of Bedlam.
While there is a lack of privacy, when it is quiet, it's extremely peaceful here. Everyone that's come into my house has told me that they have a sense of peacefulness here.
Rare moments of calm aside, it has been a bit of an adjustment for Christina, a self-professed neat freak.
It's impossible to clean the house, you know? It's really, and it really would be defeating the purpose if I tried to give it any kind of order. So it's been a great adjustment, getting used to that.
I have a feeling no one's the same after touring the Ravens Grin, let alone living there.
Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Hope you had a good time. Gives you something to talk about when you're locked up in the nursing home someday.
I hope you enjoyed the houses we visited today on Extreme Homes. They're prime examples of the ingenuity and inventiveness of people all across the United States. People who say home is not only where the heart is, it's where whimsy and wonder and sometimes wackiness reside too. Join us next time on Extreme Homes, where the only thing you can expect is the unexpected.
A bachelor searches for a home large enough to store his big boy toys on House Hunters, coming up next on HGTV.